Welcome to Sib Spot. Today's stories are about malicious compliance. Our first story is by Simple Texas. At my last job, my main duty was the IT manager for the entire location, among other duties. I had been there for 3.5 years at that point, and as I was trusted by everyone, if I had something important to say, people listened. During COVID, while the other departments' budgets were getting slashed and employees were getting laid off, I was able to replace a lot of our aging IT infrastructure. At the beginning of my last year there, the owner hires a young, I only tell the truth even though you won't like it, narcissist as his second in charge. He hired this bonehead as his successor to run his location, while the owner would focus on opening up a second. In the first 3 months, Bonehead angers everyone, to the point where 15 people from various positions leave the company to find another job. This is during the pandemic, where a lot of people were thankful they had a job, and 15 people were like, I'm going to risk finding another job in the middle of a pandemic rather than stay here. He was that bad. As Bonehead started to anger our customer base and our sales started to suffer, we switched over to cost-cutting mode. The owner had largely checked out at this point, so longtime vendors were replaced with friends and family of Bonehead. Services were downgraded or cut. Pay plans for the sales department were jacked with, which further eroded the morale of the workforce. One day, Bonehead comes to me and tells me to stop doing safety checks and maintenance repair on our products so sales could post larger sale grosses. I loudly objected and went to the owner. As the owner is always happy to hear something about making more money, he threw his support behind Bonehead's idea. A few months of this goes by, and after he fired one of my employees on my birthday because he refused to give Bonehead access to the server room, it was restricted to me, owner, and my employee, I knew it was time to go. I find a new job, put in my 2 weeks. Of course, Bonehead stops my direct deposit on payday, the day after I put my 2 weeks in. I decide it isn't worth working the extra 2 weeks and inform them that I am out of here while filing with the state over my wages being withheld. As I'm walking out the door, Bonehead reminds me that I'm no longer an employee of the company and not to get involved with the company's affairs and possible legal repercussions if I say anything negative about the company. My new job pays more, less hours, less stress. Fast forward to this Monday and I get a call from my local internet provider. They tell me my internet service bill has gone unpaid for the last 6 months and will get cut off if I don't pay immediately. I log in to see my account is paid. So after a few back and forths, I find out I am still the point of contact for my last job's account of their internet service. Remembering what was told to me when I left, I just informed them that I cannot get involved as I no longer work there. They asked me for an updated point of contact. If they cannot get one, they will be forced to suspend the service. I repeated and said I'm not allowed by threat of legal action to be involved in their affairs, and left it with that. An hour later, a buddy I know who still works there called me and told me they had to stop working as their internet service was shut off. So I played stupid, but it took about 3 days to restore it. In today's day and age, if you're missing internet for 3 days, it's almost impossible to get your work done. Our next story is by Carlos 6M. For a bit of context, I work in urgent care as a physician. I take my job very seriously, but urgent care is for urgent things. That's a no-brainer. So when a dad came in today with 2 13-year-old girls to our urgent care center and told me one of them was sick, of course I took him very seriously. As usual, I call in the next patient, and then happens to be a 13-year-old girl accompanied by her sister of a similar age and her dad. Dad tells me they came because the girl said her tummy hurts and started telling the girl about how the doctor is going to find the truth about whether her tummy hurts or it's a lie. Sort of like, this is your last chance to come out and say if you made it up. Dad starts telling me about how the 2 girls each said they felt bad at the same time when he told them to clean up their room. One said she had a headache and the other said she had a tummy ache. So the dad thought the reasonable thing to do was to bring their kids to the ER so a doctor extracts a confession, rather than doing his job as a dad and seeing that they clearly made it up on the spot to get out of their chores. And, well, since I take my job very seriously and there was a chance they may not be wasting my time, I made sure to make a very thorough and nonsensical examination that came to the conclusion that I couldn't rule out a gastroenteritis as the source of this obviously real stomachache that was nowhere to be found. The dad was trying to get a gotcha, but ended up getting recommended he makes sure his kid was well hydrated, rests, doesn't make any straining activities, eats only if she feels like it for the day, and if she keeps feeling bad tomorrow, they could consider missing a day of school. Also, she should rest, but there's no problem if she uses her computer or tablet, and that won't make the stomach ache worse. If you make me educate your kids, you're wrong expecting me to do it well. I hope he learned not to waste emergency care resources instead of doing his job as a parent. My guess is that this happened in a country where urgent care is free, because a father taking their kid to urgent care, you still have a bill if you're in the States. Our next story is by A Quiet Borderline. This happened to me yesterday, and my brother suggested I put it on here. I was busy cleaning the sinks in a restroom when a wild Karen stormed in with her 2 clearly embarrassed children. She pointed to an empty stall. "I want that toilet cleaned now." It was a slow night and I was bored, so I said, in my sweetest hospitality voice with every intention of having some fun at her expense, "Of course, ma'am. Just let me change my gloves." I changed my gloves, making a show of checking for holes in the material before pushing my cart to the stall. I grabbed the chemical with the longest dwell time, 3 minutes, which is forever in guest time, and spray down the toilet. I put the chemical back on the cart and wiped down the toilet. I was in the process of changing out my gloves when Wild Karen tried to push me aside. I'm a big woman at 275 pounds of mostly muscle, so it's like trying to push over a brick wall. "Oh no, ma'am, I'm not done yet. I have to disinfect the toilet. Want it super clean for you." "How long will that take?" Wild Karen asked, impatient. "My youngest really has to go." "Oh, about 3 minutes, I say, setting the timer on my work phone and holding it up to show her it. "But if you want, you are more than welcome to use any of the other stalls I've cleaned, which is all of them." "This is ridiculous," she huffed, dragging her kids to another stall. The kids shot me an apologetic look as she shoved them in, went in herself, and closed the stall door. I turned up the volume on my work phone so she'd hear the timer go off, as I guessed she'd be finishing long after the toilet was disinfected. And I was right. I had finished wiping down the toilet when Wild Karen and her 2 kids came out. "I'm going to complain to your manager about how long you took," she hollered as she stormed out. "Have a good night, then," I shouted after her. Later that night, I was turning in my equipment when Miss Heroin, who appeared in a previous Malicious Compliance story involving a manager and a compactor, came up, struggling not to laugh. "I understand you took too long to clean a toilet," she said before bursting into laughter. I laughed right back and said, "Well, she asked me to clean it." Raise your hand if you hate cleaning toilets. You can't see it, but mine is definitely raised. It's one of the grossest things you have to do. I used to work at a small town food shop, and I had to clean the one toilet we had in this little tiny shop and on occasion, and it was so gross in there. So gross. Even the walls were covered in stuff, and I did a complete cleaning of the walls. I couldn't reach the ceiling, but I did the walls, I did the toilet. It's just so nasty. Nobody wants to have to clean toilets, and I am so glad in places where this lady works that they do a really good job disinfecting it. Because it's gross enough to have to clean your own toilet at home. It's way worse to have to clean one that people use. So nasty. However, our stories have come to a close for today. If you enjoy this content, please click like or subscribe, or leave a comment below, which I have noticed somebody is doing on a regular basis, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Until we meet again, have a pleasurable day.